Hello guys, how are you? Welcome back to my channel, Black Girls Get Eating Disorders too. So today we are going to be doing something a little bit different, and it is connected, but we're still going to be doing something a little bit different because it's not strictly totally eating disorders really focused, all right, but there's like an element of it. So good morning, I should say, because it is actually 7 in the morning and I am heading with some peeps to the B.D.D conference, the annual B.D.D conference in Regent's Park in London on the, what date is it today? The 9th of November 2019. It's going to be running from 9 to 5, and there are going to be various talks related to BDD throughout the day. Now, if you've never heard of BDD, it actually stands for body dysmorphic disorder. Now, if you are wondering, what on earth does that have to do with eating disorders? The minute I tell you what BDD is, if you don't know, you'll be like, oh, I can see the correlation. So it stands for body dysmorphic disorder. And it is when, loosely, I'm not professional on this, obviously, so just like, let me be, guys. It is when you have a feature or there's something about you that you are convinced it's not pleasing to you. You're convinced that there is a defect, there's a problem, you don't like it. So for instance, if somebody has a fixation on their appearance, maybe their nose, maybe how their eyes look or something, like people, like we all think to ourselves, do you know what, I don't really like that part of me. That's not necessarily a healthy thing, but you know what, that's how we've been ingrained to feel by different various methods. But it's like, I don't like that, but you can usually get along with your day, and you can usually, nothing is debilitating. But when you suffer from BDD, depending on the severity, it can consume your thoughts, it can consume your actions, it can make you not want to leave the house, not want to face people, because you are so distressed and, you know, agitated and just so consumed by what you're seeing and how you're feeling about it. Do you know what I mean? So that's my loosest definition about it. So it is, again, it's a psychiatric, like it's a mental, cognitive, like it's like a disturbance. So therefore it's the same way that I talk about, it's like eating disorders. It's like a warping of what you are perhaps seeing. Particularly, that's why I'm talking about it with this anorexia nervosa. It is a warping, it is a distortion. There's a cognitive there's something cognitively that is making you see something that it really might be very different to the reality. And I'm not calling out anyone's reality, because it's not to say that people really, they're lying. And the same with anorexia, but there's just something in your mind that tells you something different to perhaps what the reality is, and it can be very black and white. And so that's where the overlap comes in, because I find that a lot of people, particularly if you also have anorexia nervosa, there can be overlaps with BDD, because it's, if you are, you know, severely or quite underweight, but you look in the mirror and you're seeing somebody who's much larger, air quotes fatter, air quotes chubby, air quotes, you know what I mean? If you're seeing that, but like in reality you are like literally borderline, kind of like, you know, in treatment, treatable, say, so to speak, or you're just very underweight, there is a form of body dysmorphia going on, because you are not seeing reality as it is. And it's very real to people who suffer from anorexia to have this distortion or to have this way of thinking. Very common, which is why usually I think it's why one of the diagnostics or diagnosis, sorry, is that you refuse to keep a weight that's right for your height, so you're always underweight. It's that fear of gaining weight, that fear of that. When you're looking in the mirror, you're seeing something completely different to reality. But it's important to add that not everybody with an eating disorder has body dysmorphic tendencies or thinks, or I think it's like a sliding scale. Like there are some people that I know that have severely that are underweight. They have you know, they are underweight. They have anorexic, but they look in the mirror and they see what they look like. They see that they don't think that they look good. They can see how painfully thin they are, how small they are, how underweight they are. They don't like it. But like I said in my first video, the thinness isn't what it's about. The thinness, very much like a cold, is a symptom, the same way you have sneezing, sore throat, and it's manifesting of whatever's going on with a cold. The same way with anorexia, the weight loss is usually a symptom of the main problem. Think of the iceberg effect, okay? That's what you see at the tip, the thinness, but it's underneath, there's other stuff going on. So you do have those that actually can see what they look like and they don't like it. But for reasons of under the iceberg and the psychological and the maybe the core reasons at heart of what it is it's something else, right? Yeah, they don't like it, but it's the core reasons that of what's underneath is what makes the behaviors of maybe controlling your food. It could be like you just need to feel like you're controlling your life, etc., etc. Whatever reasons, I don't know, because everybody's different. But then the weight loss becomes a manifestation of that. Maybe you're busy. Maybe you don't want to eat this. Maybe you do it. Do you know what I mean? But then there are others where you look in the mirror and you do not see. Does that make sense? What you might actually really look like. So this is where there's that kind of like, if you look at the circles, you can see the line in the middle where I think anorexia and body dysmorphic disorder are definitely bedfellows. So I'm going to go to this conference today. I'm going to see what it's like. I might just take a little bit of a film. I'll probably post a few bits up, and then I'll probably talk about it a bit later and explain like what I felt was interesting. I'm really excited because the lead guy on B.D.D, Dr. David Veal, is going to be giving a talk, and there are going to be other talks talking in terms of like social media and B.D.D, but also disordered eating in B.D.D. Now it says on the leaflet disordered eating, and I did a video the other day about the difference between disordered eating versus eating disorders. So there is a difference, but I'm still interested and intrigued to hear what that talk is about, because I think it'll be very relevant to this channel and to all of this stuff. All right, so signing out, and I will speak to you guys a bit later on. So it is lunchtime and we are on a break. It's 12:10 and so far this morning we have had 3 or 4 talks and they've all been amazing. The first one was an introduction to B.D.D. The second one was a personal account of a girl who had it and how he now is, she's talking about her recovery process, and it was very funny and it was insightful and it was just great. And then we just had a lecture. I chose to go to the one on shame and the nature of shame and guilt involved in B.D.D, and I think that it was incredibly insightful, and it is most definitely connected to eating disorders, like I said before. And I was sitting there and I was scribbling notes because as I was listening I was getting epiphany after epiphany, and I'm like, oh my god, this is like a little puzzle that is also fitting into the bigger picture of my situation and my recovery process, and it is been really insightful. The way it's structured actually at the moment is in the morning, which was quite good, because when you go to these things you think, oh my god, like how am I going to manage to get everything? I'm only going to see one thing. I like the way that they had a core selection of things in the morning that were just one after the other in the same space, and then the workshops came about 11ish, and that's where you could choose to go to X, Y or Z. There were about 4, and the same is going to happen in the afternoon after 2, and the same is going to happen after 3. And when that happens you get to choose which one you go to, but I like the way that they have not really put lots of things together that are something that maybe you might want to see too much. I think they've tried to split it up as much as possible. So in the afternoon, and the one that I'm going to be going to at 1:10, it's going to be on disordered eating in B.D.D, and I'm incredibly, obviously, intrigued to see what goes down there. So I shall tell you of what goes on later. Hello and good evening. So this is the final check-in from today's day out at the B.D.D, the body dysmorphic disorder conference. So it was held by the Body Dysmorphic Disorder Foundation. If you want to look at it online, it's www.bddfoundation.org. It's actually a small charity, which I didn't realise. Okay, so it is check-in time. So it is now in the evening. It's 8:30. The actual conference finished at 5. It was a full day. We got there because I was with some members of my family at 8:30 for the 9 o'clock start, and it finished at 5. And I had a insightful, great, really interesting day. I know that it's like the most lame adjectives to use. It was really interesting. It was really interesting, but honestly, it was really interesting. I mean, my reason for going was to support a family member. You might be like, oh, like, what's up with you and your family? Like you and then your family member. But these days, I think that there is sometimes, there are influences and there are reasons for everything, all right? And whether they're genetic or there are reasons for everything. Anyway, that was my reason. Now, I, having obviously coming from an eating disorder background, if you can, such a weird thing to say. I should be saying like I'm from a professional background, I'm from a working class background, middle class background, like an eating disorder background. It's like not the best background to come from. I'll rather come from a glitter background, like from YouTube, but anyway. So enough of that. No, so coming from, it wasn't primarily for me, it was to support a family member, but it was very important, it was very integral actually to my diagnoses and the things that I've been through, because like I said prior, even though you may have an eating disorder, you might not necessarily be have symptom, you may not be you have it's a sliding scale. You might have obviously have some body dysmorphia, particularly if you are an anorexia sufferer, because obviously you may be seeing a different version of yourself in the mirror or in your head to what you actually physically look like. So to some extent that is body dysmorphic, but you may also, but it's not necessarily always the case, like I said, a sliding scale. But for me, I found it incredibly interesting just to be able to hear the stories and hear more about it, because even though I know about it, I don't know I don't know huge amounts in general, and I found the whole talk really interesting. There's that word again. But the itinerary for the day, so here we are. I'm going to show you the itinerary that was there for the day. And then you can see the kind of talks, all the talks that were on. So we had the first one, it was introduction to the day. That was like about an hour, from like about 9 to about 9:30. Then there was a keynote speaker, Tanya Goodin, who was actually it was really interesting, and it's something that we all need to pay attention to, I think. And it was digital detox and the effects of social media on BDD. Once again, if you are, it's not just for BDD, it's for anyone really, digital detox. I mean, the effects of social media, on people. I've always said, for eating disorders, they are not the cause, but they are they can be an influence, okay? So it's for everybody today. I think it's kind of like that kind of chat is important, but particularly for those on with BDD or for eating disorders, where everything can be very visual. It can be a bit of a minefield. All right. So then there was about from about 9 to 10, about 10 to 11, we had let's do that again. All right. At the beginning, there was the introduction, and then we had the first keynote speaker, Dr. Amita Jassi from the Maudsley Hospital, which is some people that have eating disorders. They have a unit there. They have a section there. They also, I think, CAMS is there for the child and adolescent. They kind of talk about things, that's there. So it was Young Minds and BDD, Past, Present, and Future. Once again by Dr. Amita Jassi. Then we had the digital detox and the effects of social media on BDD by Tanya Goodin. Then just before midday, there was the talk on shame and identity in BDD by Dr. Nicole Schackenberg. And that talk was absolutely amazing when it comes to maybe identifying factors that may have been lying dormant, or factors that may have played a huge part in why maybe you developed an eating disorder. It's going down, there's a lot of things, it's like core belief, it goes down to core beliefs, it goes, shame and guilt, and just why things develop. And it was incredibly insightful. Dr. Nicole Schackenberg, she was actually sufferer. She had anorexia in her, she's 36 now. She had anorexia when she was younger, and then she also suffered from BDD. So the crossover of the two by somebody who's actually been a sufferer, so to speak, or had both, it was incredibly insightful. And I sat there taking copious notes because I was like having epiphanies after epiphany. Then we had then this is where it kind of went into, you can now pick and choose. So the other things that were there, what to expect from treatment for BDD by Benedita Monzani and Anne-Marie O'Connor. There was motivation for treatment workshop led by individuals who had been through successful treatment for their BDD. There was a suicide and prevention workshop by the charity Papyrus. Then we had there were inspirational speeches of recovery and hope, 2 of which were amazing. Well, actually, there were only 2. There was a new B.D.D animation, which wasn't titled, by Salvador Maldonado and voiced by a young person with B.D.D. Interactive charcoal drawing and habit reversal workshop for compulsive skin picking, that was a mouthful, sorry, by Liz Atkin and Simon Darnley. Exercise addiction and muscle dysmorphia by Sean Houlihan and Dr. Rob Wilson. And that was interesting. I didn't go to that one, but it touched upon it in a talk, and it's interesting that now muscle dysmorphia, it is now considered in the B.D.D cachet, as opposed to prior. It was actually considered in the eating disorder, like the anorexia. It was actually called reverse anorexia. So it's quite interesting how that's kind of you can see the correlation and how it's kind of like gone from one side to the other, but it's obviously linked. There were support groups going on, which I sat in on one to see. And then there was what I wanted to see, which was disordered eating in B.D.D, run once again by Dr. Nicole Schnackenberg, and it was, if you saw, I did a video the other day on eating disorders versus disordered eating, and so I was expecting it to be a bit more about disordered. I thought it was maybe going to be disordered eating in the sense that I identified in that video, but it was kind of eating disorders, so don't let that title put you off. I will do another video specifically on that, because there were like some good things in there that were, you know, worth kind of mentioning and having on here. So I will be doing that. And then there was also Coping with and Supporting Someone with B.D.D by Martin Anson and a Parent with Lived Experience. I'm trying to think now, because I did actually, let's have a quick look. I've got quite a few pictures that I'll be putting in here. There was Body Focused Repetitive Behavior with B.D.D, networking and Q&A for clinicians, support group for young people, support group for carers. And there was the screening, like I said, and right at the end was Dr. David Veal, who I think is in this country like the leading kind of doctor on body dysmorphia. I've seen him on television. The family member has worked with him and worked, you know, to facilitate groups as well. So I was familiar with him. I have to say, though, guys, I'm not going to lie, he was the last speaker. And at the end of the day, you expect to have, you know, especially from somebody who's considered quite, you know, in the field. He was supposed to do a 35-minute talk from 4 to 4:35. And the topic was supposed to be, or it was, I should say, sorry. It was on The Bullies Worm Their Way Inside Your Head by Professor David Veal. So it was supposed to be about, you know, the bullies and everything like that. So for such a guy, he came on, and I cannot lie to you guys, it was really disappointing. I'm not even going to sugarcoat this, because that's not what I do on my channel. In fact, I'm going to go as far as to say it was absolute crap. And my family member too kind of agreed, because first of all, it was like 4, and he must have finished about 4:20. It was a basic PowerPoint. Nothing he said wasn't anything that you and I could not have gone and just got from a textbook. There was no analytical explanation. There was nothing that was in depth. The other speakers did a far more thorough job in what they were talking about. It was really disappointing, in fact, especially when he's like, you know, I don't know, I should have he kept on making these comments like, oh, I don't think I've got anything to say. I think this is great. I get to finish early. Like, I think I'm going to finish there. And we can take some, and we have more time to take questions. And I'm like, oh, and I noticed the whole room was like, what? And I said to my family member, I was like, this is like the Emperor's New Clothes, because everybody was sort of kissing his ass like, oh my God, it's this guy. And so when they were doing the questions, they're like, oh my God, you know, that was an amazing, you know, that was a great, you know, speech. And I'm like, no, it wasn't. This was the Emperor's New Clothes. It's like nobody would wanted to call out the fact that this guy, because he's a leading guy on it. And I'm not saying in his clinical practice he's crap, but I'm just saying the speech that he gave today was absolutely ridiculous. And it reminded me of like when you forget to do a homework, an assignment piece, and you rush it in the morning and there's no substance to it. It's just so like basic that you're just like, you know, you're not going to get a good mark, but it's just better than giving you nothing in. All right. That's all I've got to say. I found it really disappointing. And I could see in people's faces, but nobody. It was a situation of the Emperor's New Clothes. I was not having it. I swear to you guys, if it was a full lecture hall, but if anybody came to me with a microphone and said, "What did you think of that speech?" I would have had to just say, "I think that was not good." I would say I was expecting more from this, and the questions that were asked, a couple of the questions were a bit kind of, maybe something he didn't particularly want to get into, but there were a couple of other questions that he could really have answered, and he didn't. It was like he didn't answer the question. It was like there was not even really an attempt to answer. It was just getting off. I'm going into it way too much, but I was just like, that was absolutely bollocks. It wasn't great. And the redeeming factor, I must say, right at the end, just before they rounded it up, was an inspirational talk by a girl called Emily and her father, and she was 19, and she actually suffered she's actually doing really well now, and it started by her actually having an eating disorder at 13, going into an inpatient treatment for anorexia. She was there for like 7 months. She came out, she was pretty much recovered, thankfully, because they caught it early, but it went straight from one disorder, jumped straight into B.D.D, which she had for 5 years before the family got a diagnosis. It was just, they said it was almost like it was a baptism of fire. It was like hell before they got it. It was only like recently in the past couple of years that she got the diagnosis, maybe in the past year. It was quite a severe case, with her not really the way she wasn't leaving the house. And if you saw, she's a beautiful girl, but I know that's the nature of this illness, the same as anorexia. People can't see what's going on because of it's very like, comorbid or whatever they say. It's very much like that. And it was just a really, really inspirational story. It was you didn't have to have it, it was just amazing to hear that the hope that can be there, and people can recover from illnesses such as this. And it's fantastic going from somebody who's couldn't leave the house. She's got like a part-time job, she's studying, she's managing to get a hold of her thoughts. And this is something that's inspirational to those that are in B.D.D, in eating disorders, and any kind of like situation that is a mental illness. And it was so inspirational. It was so nice to see her and her dad. It was so nice to see, how a family unit can come together in that sense when, these things can really tear families apart. But it was so inspirational. It kind of made up for the dog's bollocks, the bullshit that was just on before with the Dr. David Veal. But all in all, I thought the day was really good. I really got an insight into body dysmorphic disorder. I really enjoyed it. I audio recorded most of the speeches that I was interested in, and what I'm going to try and do, I haven't listened back to them yet, but I'm going to listen back, and I'm going to try, I know that this is about eating disorders and stuff, but there is such a link between body dysmorphia, even though it's not quite the same, but there's such a link between body dysmorphia, B.D.D, body dysmorphic disorder as well, I should say, and anorexia, in the same way that there is a link, and I'll draw it in circles in what I'm talking between eating disorders, OCD, and Asperger's / autism. Like, I'm telling you, like, there is such a link, there is such a tie. It might be somewhat loose like the way this is, but there is such a link. So it's so, even though this is about anorexia, particularly because this is my channel and that's what I have been through, for eating disorders in general and stuff like that, even though it's about that, these are so closely tied that it's really interesting and necessary to touch upon these, because I got a lot today from hearing some talks, particularly the talk on shame and guilt, like I said, that really gave me food for thought when I'm thinking about the basis and the underlying factors of where I've been. You know what I'm saying? and my history and stuff like that. So it's really interesting to kind of throw these things in as well. It doesn't have to just be straight up talking about symptoms and this all the time. It's good to get a real rounded base, because often we're not 3D, we're not 2D people, we're not 2D, are we? We are 3D, three-dimensional, you know, some say, like me. There's a 4D, there's a 5D, they're multidimensional. We're multidimensional. So there's so many facets to us. We are not just basically flat, you know, there's so much to us. And there's so many factors that can affect our cognition and our life experiences and the lens that we see through. So I found it all fascinating. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure the quality hopefully is okay, even if it's not, if it's listenable, but you just have to kind of not have it, you know, too much noise in the background. I think it's still worth putting some of the stuff up because the information was great. And I will do that at some point after if you hear this video, hopefully by the time you hear it or after, I would be trying to post things up. But I think it was I'm so glad that I went, and it's a great charity actually to support. I would really be interested in with my family member in doing something for charity with it. I would even definitely be interested in, you know, in terms of raising money, I would definitely be interested in even getting involved in some form of collaboration. I don't know what it is yet. If anybody's listening and you're interested, or you want a collaboration with somebody who's coming from a more eating disorder background and kind of whether it's talking about it, whether it's kind of like, you know, to kind of get a bigger picture, whether, you know, and kind of like hold hands in terms of trying to kind of work things out, you know, because everybody's different, or whether it's just however it is, you know, hit me up. But definitely working on something with that, because I think it's incredibly important, especially these days with like social media, how it's going and how everything that is very visual, and, you know, it's you know, there's a higher rate of eating disorders and, you know, being diagnosed, B.D.D, you know, things like this are coming to the forefront more and more and more. I think it's incredibly important to be very vocal and raising awareness, I guess. And I'm trying to do my little bit slowly by slowly. I know I'm anonymous, guys. I know I am at this, you know, but everything is a step by step, because these are really daunting and anxious things and anxiety inducing things to put yourself out there like this. So for now, I do it like this, but the information is still the information. So guys, look out for all of that. Thank you for watching. I hope it was please tell me I pressed record. Thank God. I hope it was of help, and I will speak to you guys later at another date. But just enjoy and look out for the uploads I'm going to be doing on the on that. I'm going to label it B.D.D / I'm going to try and put the two together so you can know, but look out for that. All right. Okay, guys, until next time, take care. Bye. Look after yourselves.